The second match of the Open Finals here at the Week 8 of the Legendary Series, brought to you by ESL. Next match is going to be really cool because this one has a lot of stories riding behind it. Not because, excuse me, not because of Reynad solely because of Reynad, because we also have Frase, who came into the Open as well in week number 2. He's also a player that has points. So it's another thing where I don't think he can necessarily qualify for the top 4, excuse me, through points. But it's still a story nonetheless.
It is a story, yeah. And I remember casting him back in week 2, which seems like so long ago. So
Well,
both these
because it
guys,
was long ago, 6 weeks ago. 6
yeah,
weeks in anything related to our industry, come on.
that is a long time.
It's like a new team could be in place and you won't even recognize it anymore.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right.
And Reynad, of course, he actually streamed his way to qualifying for today, or at least most of it, with a delay, of course. It's pretty exciting to watch. It's actually really impressive for these players that make it all the way through.
Right.
And proving his worth, I guess, through an
Yeah.
open bracket is a big deal. And a Phrase, anybody that makes it more than once, that's just incredibly impressive. Gubi Sencho, Phrase, and I think there's
Like Ping Ping Ho,
Ping Ping Ho,
who ended up getting enough points to qualify for
Yeah.
because he did so. So well done. One thing that I also love too is I love invited players who also prove their worth.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
for example, one of my favorite tournaments to just watch as a fan was VGVN number 3. This was a tournament where I believe Savitz went through the bracket and won the whole tournament. And it was one of those things where Liquid went and was like, "Hey, would you like to play?" And then he's like, "Sure." Where's Reynad? What the heck?
He just ran up the stairs. Okay.
Okay,
Phrase
so
left too.
okay, well, before we switch away here, let's take a look at the classes. We have Warlock, Mage, and Paladin versus Priest, Warrior, and Shaman. And once again, we have 6 different classes represented. I think GVG's in a pretty good spot if 6 classes are represented and we have 8 of them already played. I mean, what's the one class that hasn't been played so far?
Rogue.
Yeah, so maybe we'll see Rogue, maybe not. It definitely feels like it's at the bottom rungs. But nonetheless, I still feel like there's a lot of diversity.
Yeah. And overall, I think Reynad's, disregarding the matchups, I think Reynad actually has a really good deck lineup. You've mentioned it a couple times in the last couple weeks, and I said it before the broadcast. Warlock, Mage, Paladin, I think, are the 3 strongest classes right now. Now it's a little bit unfortunate. I guess we'll have to see, but it entirely depends on what type of Mage
Sure.
Reynad's bringing. But that Warrior matchup could be tough.
I'm going to take a guess and say it's Fatigue Mage.
Okay, well then maybe not quite as tough.
Fatigue Mage is better against Control Warrior than like Freeze Mage is.
Yeah.
And I asked Freshka, and Freshka doesn't think it's that bad against Control Warrior in general. I think it is, but that's personally probably because I don't made the deck. I probably don't even play it anywhere close to optimally, so it's probably tough if you don't understand it. I'm just gonna go on the limb because I saw him stream it the other day, and I'm not sure exactly what it is.
Okay.
Maybe it's. I also do know that he really likes Giants Mage too. Like he really likes that a lot because it's similar to Handlock, and he loves Handlock. So there's all kinds of styles here that Reynad could bring to. I'm not really sure.
Well, both of his teammates 2 weeks ago played
Freeze Mage.
Freeze Mage. Yeah.
Right. That also is a possibility. He could
Different
be playing
variations.
Freeze Mage.
Hyped in Magic Game, he did play those 2 weeks ago.
Reynad did bring Freeze Mage as well to Seat Story Cup. So he's capable of playing all kinds of styles. That's part of his strength. Phrase, in the meantime, he's got an interesting lineup. He's got Shaman. I'm going to be looking for Shaman to be a big X factor here because it's one of those classes that prays on the top but weak against the middle. So we'll see. Game number 1 is about to begin here with Reynad versus Phrase. So let's get underway and see if either of these guys can get to the semifinals.
Alrighty, well, Reynad playing Zoo.
Zoo. Well, I was anticipating Reynad to play Handlock because he's always talking about how much he loves Handlock. And I was almost ready to write him as like a really advantaged in game 1 because it would have been Handlock versus Priest, but
He doesn't love his own child.
well, actually, he loves Handlock. Handlock was his first love.
Oh yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I remember watching him back when he first started streaming to like 500,000 viewers. He ran.
When he first started. You mean 500 to 1,000? Or do you mean 500?
500 to
comma
1,000.
000?
Yeah, when like he first started like appearing in like the top 10 Hearthstone stream lists.
Oh, so like 500 to 1,000.
Yeah. And
Okay, I thought you said that so fast that you said 500,000.
Oh,
Like 500,000.
I'm sorry. I'll talk slower.
Thank
No,
you.
but the very first game that I watched of Reynad ever, it was very fitting. He was super salty because it was a handlock versus handlock mirror, and the handlock that he was playing against beat him with Sacrificial Pact. So that's the olden days of
It's funny.
Reynad's. It's when he first
Well,
opened the Salt Factory.
This is unfortunate for Frase. The Flame Imp here is the worst scenario because now he can't play his Northshire Cleric and get the extra draw. And, well, it's a pretty powerful opening.
Yeah, now he does have the
It's a great draw.
Northshire Injured Blade Master combination, and of course Shadow Madness, like you said. Fantastic against you. 2 for 1, almost always.
If he coins now, because he doesn't really have a play again this turn, if he coins now, he can't coin Shadow Madness and relieve the board until turn 4 comes out. And then if turn 4 the Dark Iron Dwarf, then, well then he won't have an effective Shadow Madness to clear the board unless this Dark Cultist lives. Oh! What a nasty draw. Actually, I don't think there's anything better, really.
No.
That Direwolf Alpha allows him to buff up a minion to 4 attack perfectly.
Yeah, I think this is... I mean, Abusive Sergeant could be another way to deal with it, but you're wasting a damage in that situation. Well, I guess potentially.
Right, because it juggles.
Because it juggles.
But it's worth evaluating to see if you need to Direwolf Alpha. Maybe you can get away with Haunted Creeper to make your board resilient.
It would be better if that hit face, but...
Yeah. I mean, if you play the Haunted Creeper, you're stronger against the potential board clears from the Alkanized Soul Priest.
And it also has a lot of synergy with Knife Juggler.
Absolutely.
Just because you can throw it in and potentially get 3 damage plus the 2 1/1s out of it. As long as your Knife Juggler survives, so.
Well, Frase, pretty sure he has to drop his Injured Blade Master. Now the question becomes of whether or not he wants to use Circle of Healing, because Circle of Healing, if he uses it and then Alkanized Soul Priest is the next draw, he might be regretting a lot of choices he made in life and in Hearthstone.
It's such an awkward spot because it just, you know that if you just leave it at 3 health, it's going to get eaten up so easily.
I think this is definitely the right choice, though.
Wow.
So what do you do here? If you're Reynad, do you drop Dark Iron Dwarf, and what do you buff? You buff the Voidwalker, I suppose.
Yeah, Voidwalker.
It does...
Protects your creatures, but
Yeah.
Direwolf Alpha and Knife Juggler represent so much potential damage.
It's one of those things where if you buff a minion and then it hits the Injured Blade Master, the minion you wanted to trade anyways is the one that's buffed, and you don't want to necessarily do that.
Yeah.
Direwolf Alpha also keeps the buff on the Knife Juggler so that like Shadow Word Pain can't get to it.
Huh.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah. Well, he taps because I guess he's thinking he doesn't want to waste the potential damage.
So you're gonna trade the Knife Juggler if this goes wrong? Oh boy.
But this makes it so he fills up his hand with Doomguard in it.
Well, next turn he's got the Dark Iron Dwarf and Leper Gnome.
Yeah.
So
That's true. So he does have a play. But if he had drawn into something clunky, like something 3+ mana, it could have been really awkward for him because he would have almost guaranteed lose a draw unless he wanted to wait a couple more turns to Doomguard. But he wasn't happy with, I guess, the potential of like losing out on damage from the Dark Iron Dwarf.
I think you want to drop and draw a card here. He doesn't have like Abusive Sergeant or a clean way, so I think you need to like try and swing here to go for a big opportunity to seize control of the board.
You can't hold out for the Soul Priest forever.
Yeah.
Because eventually you'll just get overrun waiting for it.
So, Reynad can kill off this Injured Blade Master. He also has an opportunity just to rush 7 damage to the face and put him at 10 health. Still think it's better though to end up going for these trades. Or maybe, I don't know. He's still resilient to Holy Nova. It's very tough. Also, another thing he has to be mindful of is Northshire Cleric drawing cards.
Yeah. I think he's just all in at this point.
Yeah. Oh!
Oh, no!
We talked about this exact thing too.
Oh.
Now, what's painful is I think Frase might Shadow Word Death here. And if he Shadow Word Deaths, then the Doom Guard goes uncontested. Because how else do you deal efficiently? Well, I guess you could use Holy Smite and then crash into Dark Iron Dwarf.
Yeah. You could Shadow Madness, No, that wouldn't work.
See, yeah, can you Shadow Madness anything? You Shadow Madness the Voidwalker.
But then you wouldn't be able to kill off the Voidwalker unless you threw it into the
Yeah.
Dark Iron Dwarf, and then that would just be wasting the damage. Because you would throw the Injured Blade Master into the Dark Iron Dwarf.
It's so complicated and awkward. And this is a very complicated puzzle. Okay, so
I mean, you could
Shadow Madness.
the Hana Creeper.
Yeah, you get the Holy Smite as well.
Yeah. But this way you can clear everything but the Dark Iron Dwarf.
Right, but that's actually game. Because the Doom Guard.
Unfortunately, it is.
Yep, that's the best chance that he had, but I guess if we had a minute or two to evaluate, maybe we could find something marginally better by a point or two, but Reynad just takes a very simple and easy game one, and it comes down to the sequencing and combination of priest cards. You have the Alkanai Soul Priest in the clear, your win rate jumps up like phew.
Yeah. But again, you can't hold out for it forever.
Exactly, right? It's one of those things where I was talking about, like, how long can you hold on to it? And he had an opportunity to draw into cards and maybe stabilize, and then there's just too much.
Because if he had just held off there and not really done anything, then there would have been a lot more potential damage on the board. The Doom Guard still probably would have come out at that turn anyway, since there wouldn't have been any like board control to really wrestle over in your mind.
The crucial turn too is Reynad choosing to go for the face and attack.
Yeah.
It's one of those scenarios where it's a lot harder when you're in that spot, because you see a Northshire Cleric which can draw you cards. You see an Injured Blade Master which will never die. It's one of these things where like, oh man, do I have to play control? And it's like, well, in this case, you just have to evaluate all the best scenarios and just go for the damage to the phase. To a guy like Reynad, probably not as complicated, but to somebody who's watching and might be overlooking that, it's just a very strong decision line that forces